Hello everyone, welcome to Pharma Shiksha. You are watching the first series lecture of the Pharma Shiksha today. This channel is all about learning the pharmacy and the medical concept in a simple and easy way. So today I will be starting with the series with an introduction to anatomy and physiology. In this video, I will help you to understand what anatomy is. So anatomy means it is the study of structure of the human body, and the physiology means which explain how the body works. I will also give you a quick overview of how the body is organized from cells to tissues, organs and the organ systems. So let's get started and keep learning it simple. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming lessons. So now let's have a quick look at what we are going to cover in this video. First, I will explain the definition and scope of anatomy, physiology and pathophysiology. Next, we will understand the levels of structural organization starting from cells up to the whole body. Then I will give you an overview of different body systems. After that, we will discuss the basic life processes that are essential for survival. We will also understand the concept of homeostasis, which is very important in maintaining body balance. Finally, I will introduce some basic anatomical terminologies that will help you understand the subject better. So let's move on to the first topic. The human body is a highly organized and complex living system. It is made up of trillions of cells that work together to maintain life. Each cell has a different specific functions, but all of them coordinate to keep the body functioning properly. The body performs several important functions like movement, growth, reproduction, and maintaining internal balance, which is called homeostasis. For example, temperature. So if any changes occur in the outside temperature, according to that body, our body will change the internal temperature also. So now let's understand some key features of the human body. The first point is maintain homeostasis. So that means like which keeps the body, keep the internal environment stable even when the external conditions changing. And the second one is body require energy to function. So and this energy mainly comes from the food we eat. Third, the body is capable of responding to stimuli and adapting to change in the environment. So overall, the human body is well organized system that continuously works to sustain the life and the balance. Human anatomy and physiology is the branch of science that studies the structure of human body and the functions of its parts that we can consider as the physiology and how they work together to maintain life and health. So what is human anatomy and physiology means? We can see that it is a branch of science and which helps to study the structure of the human body. So structure of the human body that we can call it as the anatomy and the functions of parts. For example, one we can consider the lungs. So you are studying the anatomy like lungs. Lung is here and it begins with the trachea from the oral cavity, and there is a lungs with the alveoli and the bronchial tree. So the structural study we can consider as the anatomy, and the functions means how those works. For example, alveoli. Alveoli helps for the exchange of gases. So that we can consider as the physiology. So how it function, that we can call it as the physiology, and the structure if you are studying, that is anatomy, and both how they work together. So to facilitate the respiration. So how they working to maintain the life and health. So that together we can call it as the human anatomy and physiology. So here we can see the anatomy. So the anatomy is the branch of science that studies the structure of the human body and the relationship between its different parts. So the anatomy, you can see the definition, and which is about the study of physical structure of the body including organs, tissues and cells. And the anatomy divided into three parts, or you can say like types of anatomy are three parts: gross anatomy, microscopic anatomy and the developmental anatomy. Gross anatomy means study of structures visible to the naked eye. So like normally we can see the lungs or the muscles, we can see the skin, we can see. So these are the gross anatomy by visible naked eye. Remember the point? The gross anatomy means the study of structures which are visible to our naked eye. We don't need any microscopes. And the microscopic anatomy means we can study only under the microscope. For example, tissues or cells and the cell division. These are the examples for the microscopic anatomy. So the study of tissues we can call it as the histology, study of cell is cytology. And the third one is developmental anatomy. Developmental anatomy means which is about the study of growth and development. The embryology, the development of the embryo, that we can call it as the developmental anatomy. We are studying the structure, how the bodies are like forming or developing, that we can study under the developmental anatomy. So again, the anatomy means which is we are studying about the structure of the human body, and it is there are three parts are there, or three types of anatomy are the gross anatomy, microscopic anatomy, developmental anatomy. In the gross anatomy, we doesn't need any microscopic help. We can see it is visible from through our naked eye. And the microscopic anatomy means only under the microscope. And the developmental anatomy means the development of the for example the dog development, the fetus development, embryo, and the human, so that is embryology. So here we can see the main divisions of human anatomy. So the first one again, the gross anatomy and microscopic anatomy, developmental anatomy, and the comparative anatomy. So actually I haven't shown this comparative anatomy in the previous slide. And gross anatomy means or macroscopic anatomy, which is a study of the structure of the any particular organ or the parts which is visible to the naked eye. So that we can consider under the gross anatomy study. And the gross anatomy is further divided into three parts: regional anatomy, systemic anatomy, and the surface anatomy. And regional anatomy means which is study specific regions of the body. Uh, for example, heart, neck, thorax, any specific regions of the body if you are studying, then we can call it as the regional anatomy. And the systemic anatomy means the specific different body systems such as like a skeletal system, nervous system, integumentary system, respiratory system. If you're studying, then we can call it as the systemic anatomy. And surface anatomy, which focuses on the external features of the body. And yeah, that you can call it as the surface anatomy, like the external structure we are correlating with it, and we are studying for identifying organs, locating the structures, performing the examination and the procedures. So in such conditions we can go with the surface anatomy. And the second one is microscopic anatomy or the histology. Microscopic study means any tissue parts, cells, we are studying under the help of microscope, that you can call it as the microscopic anatomy. And the developmental anatomy means which is embryology. So we already know what is developmental anatomy or embryology. This studies the development of the human body from the fertilization to the birth. And the last one, the final one, is comparative anatomy, which compare the human body with the other organisms. So for example, we are comparing the human organ or the human body with the other animals like a elephant or the monkeys, rat, rabbit. So that is comparative anatomy. Here we can see the structure of the human parts. For example, the liver is here, the bone is here, and the heart. So gross anatomy is the study of the large body structures such as like organs, muscles, and bones that can seen directly. So if you're studying any specific organs like a heart, lungs, liver, bones, and muscles, then we can call it as a gross anatomy. Gross anatomy is nothing much. We are just studying the entire organ, like which of course which are visible through our naked eyes, and we are studying the structure of it, that is gross anatomy. And here we can see the systemic anatomy. Systemic anatomy means we are studying any systems. For example, you can see the cardiovascular system, nervous system, respiratory system, digestive system, skeletal system, or the muscular system. So if you are studying any of this entire system, then you can call it as the systemic anatomy. And the regional anatomy means any specific regions of your human body, and we are studying of it, then you can call it as the region anatomy. And here we can see like a group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6. So this means like any of the regions of the or body part if you're studying, then you can call it as the regional anatomy. And the surface anatomy means external and internal, like you can see a few marks here, like it is numbered here. Any of the surface which marked we are studying, then you can call it as the surface anatomy. And the next one you can see, that is microscopic anatomy. Microscopic anatomy is the branch of anatomy that studies the structure of the body that are too small to see with the naked eye and require a microscope. So some of the body parts or the tissue cells we are unable to see through the naked eye. In such cases we need a microscope. With the help of microscope you can study or see the structure. So example, you can see the blood cells here and the neuron cells you can see, and here you can see the muscle. So the muscle, there are three types of muscles are there: smooth muscles, skeletal muscles, and the cardiac muscles. And the nerve cell is visible here. So these are the microscopic images. And in the developmental anatomy, it is actually the branch of anatomy and which is dealing with the growth, or you can study the growth and development of the human body from fertilization to the adulthood, which is including the embryology. Embryology means the study of development before the birth and postnatal development after the changes which occurs after the delivery. And example, formation of organs in the embryo, growth of bones from childhood to adulthood. So here you can see the image, the animal, and the growth of the animal. You can see the changes which is occurring here, and here also you can see from here to till here what changes which is occurring. So if you are studying the embryological structures, the what changes which is occurring during the growth of embryology, so that you can compare here. And developmental anatomy is not a much thing, it is a study of the growth and development of the human body from fertilization to the till being the adult. So now we can start with the physiology. What is physiology? So physiology is a branch of science which is dealing with the functions of human body, how it is working and how it is sustaining the life, so that we can study in the physiology. So example, how the heart pumping the blood, and how the lung help for the breathing, and how kidneys are filtering waste, how nerve transmit the signaling in the brain. So this all we can study in the physiology. And there are types of physiology: cell physiology, systemic physiology, human physiology, comparative physiology, and pathophysiology. So physiology, how the organs works. And here you can see the Alzheimer. In the pathophysiology, you can study that from the normal structure, how the Alzheimer forms. That you can study in the pathophysiology. Comparative physiology means which is we are comparing functions, or you can say like from another animal to human organ. We are comparing it. Human physiology is like we are studying the functioning of the human body. Systemic physiology, like for example the integumentary system, how the integumentary system is maintaining the, or you can just like sustaining the protection, how it is working, and the skin tone, how it is protecting from the UV rays, so that we can study. And cell physiology means the, we already know cell is the simplest and functional and structural unit of our life. So the complete structure and uh, how it is working, that we can study under the cell physiology. So the first physiology study is the cell physiology. Cell physiology means which is dealing with the study of physiology of the cell, how the normal cell is working, and like structure and the function. Of course, the cell is the structure and the functional unit of our life. So how the cell is working and sustaining everything, that we can study under the cell physiology. So like you can see here that the metabolism, transport mechanism, cell communication, growth and reproduction, energy production. So these all are the functions of our cell. So in the physiology, cell physiology, we can study about the all the cell organelles and how they are working together, coordinating together to sustain the working. So of course the metabolism is there. There are chemical reactions are there, which is in the inside the cell, and which is maintaining the life. And there are many transport mechanisms are there, which is crossing the cell membrane, or the cell membrane, you can say plasma membrane. And there are communication between the cells to cell. I think you already know paracrine, autocrine, juxtacrine, so there are endocrine. So there are many communications are there. So that also we can study. And growth and reproductive involved. So cell division also we can study here, and how the new cells are forming, and how the mitochondria is producing the energy, and how the body is utilizing that energy. So the cell physiology means entirely we are studying. In the another video, I will explain everything about the cell organization. So in this structure, actually, you can see the single cell, and here we can see the line, that is plasma membrane, and inside you can see the cytoplasm. This blue color is the cytoplasm, and it is embedded with many organelles, like you can see microfilament, Golgi bodies, and the mitochondria is here, and the nuclear membrane, nucleolus, and the endoplasmic reticulum, like a smooth endoplasmic reticulum here, and the rough endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and the Golgi apparatus and lysosomes are there. So there are many types of new cell organelles are there, and this all cell organelles are working together. Let's move on to the systemic physiology. Systemic physiology is the branch of physiology and which is dealing with the study of organ systems and how they are working together to maintain the life. So for the sustaining a good life, we have a lot of means like around 12 types of systemic systems are there. So which is explaining the various organ systems and their integration to maintain the homeostasis. This diagram, you can see the nervous system, cardiovascular system. Here we can see the digestive system, muscular system, skeletal system, respiratory system, and the muscular system. So there are 11 types, excluding the reproductive system one. We have total 11 systemic systems are there, and we will be studying this all the systems also. Systemic physiology means we are studying how the systems are working. And in the human physiology, we are studying the normal function and the process of the human body and its parts. So which is explaining how the body performs their function, which is necessary for the survival and maintaining the balance in the body. So here we can see a few examples, like a heart is pumping the blood to supply the oxygen and nutrients, and the lungs help for the breathing and gas exchange in the alveoli, and digestive system breaking down the food into energy, and there are absorption, the entire digestive system, and the nervous system, which is controlling and coordinating body activities by sending the signaling. So the human physiology means we are studying the normal functioning and the process of the human body, and how the rest of the parts are sustaining together or like coordinating. Comparative anatomy we have explained, and comparative physiology means which explaining the similarities and difference in the body functions among the various species and their adaptations to the environment. For example, fish use the gills for respiration, but in the case of humans we are having lungs. And desert animals conserve the water, whereas aquatic animals do not need any such adaptations because they already have water there, like they can live. And the shark, you can see the shark digestive system, salamander digestive system, lizard, pigeon, and the cow. and their parts you can see here. So this is a comparative physiology, and even you can compare your human body working with the rat, rabbit or monkeys, with this all are having similarities with the humans. That's why we are using it for research. So comparative physiology means we are comparing our human body with the rest of other animals, how they're working for the better adaptation to the environment. That we can call it as the comparative physiology. The last one is the pathophysiology. So in the pathophysiology, we are studying about the functional changes which is occurring in the body. For example, any disease or the injury happened. So about changes will occur in our normal organs. So again you can see the pathophysiology deals with how normal body functions are altered in disease condition, that you can study under the pathophysiology. And example you can see in diabetes mellitus, normally insulin controls the blood glucose levels, but in the disease condition there is insulin deficiency or resistance, which is result in increased blood glucose level, like hyperglycemia. Hyperglycemia means high blood glucose level. So you can study many disorders, for example Alzheimer, Parkinson, glaucoma or jaundice, like all the disorders you are studying that under the pathophysiology. Introduction of anatomy and the physiology we have cleared here. And what is the need of studying human anatomy and physiology? So first of all, we can study about the structure of the human body, like cells, tissues, organ systems, the entire human body you can study by from this, and study of functions of the human body through physiology. So for the case of lungs, how it is working, you can study from the human anatomy and physiology. And you can understand various body systems, all the 11 systems you can study from the human anatomy. Maintenance of homeostasis to sustain a good health, or for the homeostasis what we can do externally, and maintenance of homeostasis you can study, we will get to know. Providing a foundation for the medical sciences. Without knowing human body we can't do any studies. So for that also, for the medical science to apply the medications, we need to know the body. Helps in understanding diseases. So without knowing human anatomy and physiology, we can't even go for the pathophysiology. And which is useful in diagnosis and the treatment. For the diagnosis and the treatment also, HAP we need to study. And for the important for the health, nutrition and the fitness. So this all are the functions and the scopes of the human anatomy and physiology. Here we can see the levels of structural organization. So the structural organization begins from the chemical level, cellular level, tissue level, organ level, system level and the organism level. So in the chemical level, you can see the atoms and molecules, cellular level, cells and their organelles, tissue level, like there are 4 types of tissues are there that we can study under this, and all the tissues combine to form the organs, and all the organs to form the systems, and all these 11 systems will be the organism in the human body, and that will become the complete organism. So again, the level of structural organization beginning with the chemical level, the atoms and molecules combine to form the cellular level, and the cells are the structural and the functional unit of our life, and cell has the outer surface and even the organelles, and group of cells combine to form the tissue, and tissues all combine to form the organ, and all organs will become the system, and systems are the organism level. So chemical level is the lowest level of structural organization, and it has like atoms and molecules which helps for the building blocks of human body. So without atoms and molecules there will be no cell. Without cell there is no tissue. So it is a basic level of structural organization. And the chemical level, which consists of atoms and molecules that combine to form a basic components of the cells and the body. So here we can see the atom is the molecule forms, and the molecules you can see, and this will become the cell, and the group of cells combine to form the tissue. All tissues will become the organ to organ system and a complete human. So the chemical level is the forms which helps to forms the foundation for all the higher levels. Like without chemical level there will be no rest of the organ levels, and which is involved in metabolism. So chemical reaction in the body, so for that also there should be the chemical level. And the chemicals like atoms or molecules will help for the energy production and the storage. Here we can see the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the uh, powerhouse, we used to say, so which help for the energy. It gives the energy ATP to the cell. Without energy there will be no working, nothing will work, and there is no need of studying physiology. So without energy nothing will happen. And maintaining the body functions through the chemical balance, so everything will be balanced in our body, and the chemical level is the basic level and which is very necessary for the rest of organ development. And examples includes atoms like oxygen, carbon, hydrogen are present in our human body. And the what molecules means like combining from. Here we can see the hydrogen and oxygen combined from the water, and the glucose and the proteins, these are the molecules. So the chemical level means this is the basic or the lowest level of organization, and without chemical level there will be no rest of other organization. Atoms are the basic units and they are the smallest particles of an element. So the major atoms in the human body are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and these atoms combine to form the molecules. So the molecules which are formed from when two or more atoms are combined to form, chemically combined, so it will become the molecule. And the molecules, you can see the water is example of one molecule and which is essential for all the cellular activities, and the glucose source of energy, and the proteins are the structural and functional components, lipids energy storage and cell membrane structure. So it stores this energy in the form of lipid. Whenever it required, the atom lipids will be converted and there will be energy formation. And macromolecules like large molecules are present in our human body, and these are the large complex molecules which is formed from the smaller units like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and nucleic acid to form the macromolecules. Remember, macromolecules are the large molecules. Once the chemical level completed, like for example atom formed, atoms combines to form the molecule, all the molecule combine to form the cell. So the cell is the structure and the functional unit of our life, so which help for the rest of other formation of the organization. So in this level molecules will combine to form cells, which are the smallest living units which can capable of carrying out all the vital functions. Like you can see here nervous cell. Nerve cells are very essential for the transmission of signaling. And the muscle cells, there are muscles are very essential for the movement. And the blood cells, these are the example for the cellular level. This all are the cells. And here we can see the structure of one cell, and the outer is the cell membrane, and inside we can see the nucleus and with the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm has cytosol you can call it as the, like, there are many organelles are there. So ribosome, which is for the synthesis of proteins, and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum for the lipids, and the lysosomes are the suicidal bags. We can see cytoplasm, this yellow color is actually showing the cytoplasm itself fluid, and the vesicles are forming. So maybe you heard about the exocytosis and endocytosis. Endocytosis means if any particle entering inside the cell, that is endocytosis. If anything moving outside, then you can call it as the exocytosis. And here we can see the vesicles centrioles for the cell division, and rough endoplasmic reticulum. If the ribosome is present, then you can call it as the rough endoplasmic reticulum for the synthesis of protein. And the mitochondrion is for the energy formation, and plasma membrane, Golgi apparatus for the packaging which is coming from the endoplasmic reticulum. And the nucleus has the outer envelope, that is nuclear envelope, and the nuclear pores are there, pores which allows the DNA or any materials to come out or in. And the nucleolus will be the middle part, and the chromatin you can see the chromosome here. And cytoskeleton like filaments and the microtubules which give the structure and shape to the cell. Same like our bone. Without bone our body has no shape. Same like that the cell also has a cytoskeleton. And so this is the structure of the cell. Group of cells combine to form the tissue level. The tissue level, you can see that it is a level of structural organization which is groups of similar cells work together to perform a specific function. So here we can see the four types of tissues. For example, epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and the nervous tissue. The epithelial tissue we will discuss in the tissue level of organization clearly, and the connective tissue also we will be covering there. And muscle tissues are three types: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. And the nervous tissue actually help for the conduction of the electrical signals. So there are neurons and glial cells are the supporting cells, and the neurons are the cells which is impulse helps to transmit the signals. So our chemical level is completed. Chemical level will helps to form the cell. Cellular level will complete, and group of cells combine to form the tissue level. Once the tissues all combine to form the organ, there will be begin the organ level. So here we can see different types of organ: brain, stomach, and spleen. Spleen, and the pancreas, intestine, urinary bladder, kidneys, intestine, liver, lungs, heart. So here we can see the different types of organs, and the organ level means the group of tissues will work together to form an organ, and each of the organ has specific shape and their functions also different, and this all help for coordinating a function. For example, heart will help for the pumping of blood, lungs help for the breathing. And here we can start the, you can see here the organ level is started. All different types of organs combine to form the system. So there are many types of systems are there, like nervous system, digestive system, respiratory system. There are many types of systems are there. So that you can study in the system level. So here we can see at this level different organs coordinate and interact to carry out complex physiological functions necessary for survival. Like all the organs combine to form the system level, and that system will help for, or it helps for the to facilitate their particular function. This diagram shows all the types of the body systems. Here we can see digestive system, muscular system, integumentary system, our skin, lymphatic system, endocrine system, nervous system, skeletal system, male reproductive system, female reproductive system, respiratory system, urinary system, and the circulatory system. This all system we need to study, like we will be studying in the HAP subject. At the end, here we can see the organism level with the combining of atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, systems. This all the systems combine to form a organism. So the organism level is the highest and the last final level structural organization, and which is a complete living individual, means that is the organism level. In this level there we can see body systems, and which help for the coordinating and integrating manner to maintain a life and health. For example, a human being is a complete organism, or if you are keeping any animal, a dog or an elephant, an elephant being is a complete organism. And all the body system function I have included here. Digestive system is mainly for breaking down the food and for the absorption of nutrients. Respiratory system for helping breathing and exchange of gases. Cardiovascular system help for the transportation of blood in your entire body and supplying blood, oxygen, nutrients, and waste. Nervous system is controlling and regulating the body activities. For example, your endocrine and involuntary and voluntary. This all functions coordinated by your nervous system. It's a complex system. And endocrine system, which is secreting hormones, and it sends the signal, the hormones into the systemic circulation, and that systemic circulation will travel in the body, and wherever the target cells are there it binds and it started showing the action. And muscular system, which enabling the movement of the body. Only with the bone we can't move our body. For that our body should have the muscles. So only with the help of muscles our body is able to move for the motility. And skeletal muscles, which give the which provides the support and protection to our body. And urinary system, which help for the filtration of waste materials from our blood, and it is removing the waste through the urine and maintain the fluid balance. Reproductive system, which is responsible mainly for the reproduction for the next progeny of the particular organism. And integumentary system means which is protecting our body, like our outer barrier, you can call it as a skin. The skin is the largest organ in the human body, and which helping for which help for the protection. And the lymphatic system or the immune system, which help for the defense the body against infection. For example, immune cells, the immune cell help for the immunity, so which fight against any microorganisms if it enters. So these are the all the body systems working together to specific or to for the best survival of that particular organism. So the next topic, that is basic life processes. So in the basic life processes, there we can see the metabolism, responsiveness, movement, growth, differentiation, reproduction. If this life process are not there, that means the body is dead. The person is not alive. So the metabolism means there are, like in the metabolism classified into two types, catabolism and anabolism. And the responsiveness means any reaction to environmental changes. Like for example, the temperature is changing outside. So according to that, our body will start changing. That's a responsiveness, or you are reacting to something, so that also responsiveness. And movement means there are internal or cellular movements and even the organism movement. So the movement will be there, it's a basic life process. Growth, the body should grow, the muscles, organs and even the bones are growing, increase in size, increase in cell number. And differentiation, the cell cycle, so there will be a new cell formation in every time, every seconds, every minutes. Different types of cells are differentiating, so specialization of cells. And the reproduction is very important, so cellular reproduction and even the organismal reproductions are there. So these are the basic life processes which are essential for the functioning of the human body. The first basic life process is metabolism. The metabolism is, you can say, like there are many types of chemical reactions are occurring in the human body, which is very necessary to maintain the life. So which metabolism means this it occurs in the human body, and it breaks down the substances to release the energy. So here we can see the food, fat you had or carbohydrates or any food material you had eaten, and there will be absorption with there will be metabolism. Once the metabolism happen, only then our body will get the energy. And the metabolism classified into two types, catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism means the process, the complex substances will be breaking down, that we can call it as the catabolism. For example, here we have the food, and from this food, for example, carbohydrates with the help of amylase enzyme, it will become amino acid. And once it became the amino acid, there will be again the breakdown and there will be release of glucose. Once the energy glucose released, then only there will be simplest form will form, that is energy. So the ATP will form only with the help of glucose. So that you can call it as the catabolism. Catabolism means a larger complex will be breaking down into simpler one, or the single one, that is catabolism. And in the case of anabolism means it's a small molecules or the substances will be synthesized into complex molecule, and that you can call it as the anabolism. So the define anabolism is the process in which simple substances are synthesized into complex molecules requiring energy. For example, formation of protein is the example of anabolism. The second one is responsiveness, which is the ability of body to detect and respond to changes which happen internally or externally environment. For example, you have touched some hot surfaces, if you had touched somewhere, your hand will withdraw the hand from that particular area you have touched. So that is a reflex action. So for example, withdrawal of hand from a hot object, or the pupillary constriction in bright light, and sweating in response to heat, that comes under the homeostasis. So these are the example of responsiveness. So according to the changes which occurred or the stimuli, we actually has the ability to change, so that we can call it as the responsiveness. And humans are able to move, ability of body to move, that is movement. So for example, external movement and even the internal movement. In the external movement, you are walking, running, the whole body is moving, that is external movement. And in the case of internal movement, there will be circulation in the body, and the food is traveling, the pulse cells is movement, or contraction of muscles. These are the internal movement. For example, external, you can see here walking or running, and the internally beating of the heart, there will be contraction and relaxation according to the changes, and movement of food in the digestive system. So these are the examples of movement. And growth is the major basic life process only. So it is the process which the body size is increasing, and your organs or the muscle, the bones are developing, that is growth. Growth occurs due to increased in number of cells, that is cell division, and synthesis of new materials within cells, and it is controlled process regulated by genetic factors and hormones like a growth hormone and somatostatin also. For example, increase the height during childhood, enlargement of muscles with exercise, development of organs. These all are the examples of growth and development. Differentiation is very important process, which is unspecialized cells become specialized in structure and function. So during the differentiation, the cells will be developed in a specific characteristics and which have perform particular functions in the body, that you can call it as the differentiation, and this will be controlled by the gene expression. For example, stem cells becoming the nerve cells, that is an example of differentiation. From the stem cells, the nerve cells are forming, and the formation of muscle cells or the blood cells from the stem cell. So the diagram here also you can see, which is indicating the differentiation process. The stem cell, from the stem cell, the rubriblast is forming for the formation of RBC, and the early erythroblast, there will be late erythroblast. In the normoblast, the nucleus is removed, and there will be formation of reticulocyte and adult RBC cell, you can see, and that we can call it as the erythrocyte or the red blood cells. So the differentiation means the new cells are forming, that you can call it as the differentiation. So the reproduction is the final one. The reproduction is very important for the formation of new progeny, that we can call it as the reproduction. In the reproduction, there are cellular level of changes and even the organism level of changes. So mitosis means it is a new cell formation or the development of new cells. For example, skin is the example for that. And the organism level means the sexual reproduction, that is meiosis. So the meiosis is a reductional cell division. The sperm and the egg from the female will combine to form the zygote with the 46 chromosomes, and once the fertilization completed, there will be formation of new embryo. So the reproduction also the one of the major basic life process. And the example, you can see the cell division for the tissue repair and formation of new baby are the example of reproduction. The next topic is the homeostasis. Homeostasis is for the maintenance of the stable internal environment in despite to the external changes. If any changes occurred in externally, according to that your body internally changes. For example, temperature, monsoon, the winter time, the summer time. So whatever the changes externally happening, according to that the internal temperature also the body is maintaining. And here we can see continuously body is regulating few conditions: temperature, pH, blood glucose level, and fluid balance. So this regulation is mainly controlled by the nervous system and the endocrine system through feedback mechanism. There are two types of feedback mechanisms are there. One is a negative feedback mechanism and the second one is positive feedback mechanism. The negative feedback mechanism means which is reversing the changes to keep the condition stable. For example, body temperature or blood glucose level are the example for the negative feedback. And the case of positive feedback mechanism during childbirth, that is example of the positive feedback mechanism. And blood coagulation also example of the positive feedback mechanism. Homeostasis is regulated by three mechanisms: receptor, control center, and effector. So the receptors means, for example, the parturition process. So we are like the person is giving a delivery to the baby. So the baby, there will be movement of baby, and the baroreceptors are present there, will give send the signal to the control center. The control center will be the brain here. So in the brain there are hypothalamus and even the pituitary gland. So the hypothalamus will receive the signal and it will start giving the oxytocin stimulating hormone. So the posterior pituitary gland will release as the oxytocin. So oxytocin will enter to the systemic circulation and there will be binding with the oxytocin. So the effector is the binding receptor here, so that there will be contraction occur. So this is the positive feedback mechanism in the case. So it could either oppose or enhance the stimulus. Opposing means negative feedback mechanism. Enhance means it is the positive feedback mechanism. So I have told you about the positive feedback mechanism. In the case of negative, the temperature regulation also same. There will be receptor, control center, and the effector. According to that only there will be changes occurs. In this image, we can see the imbalance of variables. The imbalance occurred here. So to sustain this imbalance, like we need to maintain the balance here. For that, there will be stimulus first send the signal to the receptor. So the receptors will send the signal to the control center. It will be the brain. So the brain will integrates it and send the signal to the effector. There will be integration and that output will goes to the effector. So according to the output it received, whether it has to work or not. So according to that, the response of the effector we can see here. So maybe the variable will be homeostaticide. So here we can see the imbalance and here it is too much. So it will be balanced. And next, the negative feedback mechanism. The negative feedback mechanism means it will be lesser, like it is opposing the activity. Negative feedback is a control mechanism where the body reverses a change to maintain a stable internal environment. For example, maintaining temperature, blood sugar level, and blood pressure are the example for the negative feedback mechanism. Here we can see the body is too warm and so the body will start to cooling down by warming. We can see the few examples for the negative feedback mechanism. So the first one is body temperature regulation, second blood sugar regulation, and the third one is blood pressure regulation. The first one is body temperature. Body temperature means, for example, you are uh, in a desert area and the body temperature is raised here. In that case, the hypothalamus detect it and it trigger the sweat glands to start sweating. So once the sweating started, there will be vasodilation. So because of vasodilation, there will be cooling it off with the help of sweat. And if the temperature is false, for example in the cold region if you are, and it trigger the shivering, your body will start to shiver due to, because of the shivering muscle contraction, gradually the vasoconstriction will be started and there will be warming up with the help of the shivering. And in the case of blood sugar level, when the blood glucose level is rising, increasing, in that case pancreas will releases the insulin. So insulin will be lower the process, lower the blood glucose level. And in the case of, if you are having lack of blood glucose level, there will be glucagon release and it will increase the blood glucose level. And the third one is blood pressure regulation. If the blood pressure is increases, the baroreceptors will detect and send the signal to the brain. So it is slow the heart rate and it is vasodilating. And if the blood pressure is dropping, in that case the heart rate is increases and vessels will be constrict. So these are the three examples of the negative feedback mechanism. Here you can say again, body temperature exceeding the 37 degrees Celsius, so that nerve cells in the green is detecting and receptors will give the signal to the control center. So the control center will give the signal to the sweat glands, so that sweat glands started to produce the sweat, so that the body will be cooling down. And in this flowchart, you can see that when the blood pressure is very high, so you had the sugary food, any sugary food you have taken, and the glucose level is very high in the circulatory system. So what will happen? The pancreas will detect and get the the brain will detect and get the signaling from the brain. So pancreas will started releasing insulin. Once the release of insulin started, the body cells absorb the glucose for energy and there will be conversion of extra glucose into glycogen. So it will be stored in the liver and muscle. So like that the blood glucose level will be comes back to normal. And in the case of blood glucose level, here we can see that during fasting or exercise the blood glucose level is reduced, so that the pancreas will started to release a hormone, that is glucagon, and the glucagon will be signaled to the liver. So the stored the glucose level, the glycogen is stored there, right? And that glycogen will be converted into glucose, so it releases the more glucose into the blood. So the blood glucose level will be increases and it back to the normal. The second feedback mechanism is the positive feedback mechanism. The positive feedback mechanism, when the body amplifies or increases a change. So instead of opposing, here it will be reversing it. So it pushing the process forward until a specific goal is reached. The best example here we have childbirth. And so during childbirth, the baby's heart will be passes on the cervix and there are baroreceptors. Receptors are there. Receptors send the signal to the brain and the brain will give the signaling to the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland will releases oxytocin hormone. Oxytocin will releases and it enters to the systemic circulation. Then it will bind with the receptors which are present in the uterus and there will be stronger uterine contraction. The stronger contraction is pulling the baby out for the normal delivery of the baby. Till the baby comes out, there will be contraction in the uterine wall. So then the baby will come out. So this is the one of the best example for the positive feedback mechanism. The second one is the blood clotting. So the blood clotting means when a blood vessel is injured. Here you can see there is a wound, any cut you have got, and you can see here the wound is started. So here the blood started uh, bleeding. So what will happen? The platelets are the major function of the platelets are for the blood coagulation. The chemicals which are released there will attract to the platelets and it starts to clot. And the process will amplifies the process of coagulation until the bleeding stops. And here we can see the formation of blood clot. Clotting factors are there which forms the activate the prothrombin to thrombin conversion, and there will be fibrinogen form and fibrin, and there will be blood clot with the help of platelets. And here we can see the steps of the blood coagulation. So the another example for the positive feedback mechanism, that is milk ejection. So once the delivery completed, the baby needs milk. For that, the baby will start suckling the breast of the mother. So the nerves which are present in the breast will send the signal to the control central, that is brain. So the brain will releases the signal to the posterior pituitary gland. So the posterior pituitary gland will start releasing oxytocin and even the prolactin from the anterior pituitary gland. So once the hormone released, the milk will start releasing from the mammary gland. So once the baby starts suckling again and again, more oxytocin and the prolactin hormone will start releasing. So even more oxytocin is releasing. So the process continuing. So the baby will get the milk and the hormone also increasing. Here you can see the example that the hormone release is higher and higher. So that is why it is the another positive feedback mechanism. Let's move on to the basic anatomical terminology. So in anatomy, we use specific terms to describe a positions, directions and planes of the human body. So the anterior, posterior, the front side you can call it as the anterior and the back you can call it as the posterior. So anterior, posterior. And the towards the head portion you can call it as the superior. And towards the leg portion you can call it as the inferior. Might you heard about the inferior vena cava, superior vena cava. And yeah, and here I will show you the structure. The terms which help for the doctors, nurses and students to communicate clearly about the where something is in the body. So to describe the positions of the body, you can use this basic anatomical terminologies. So here we can see the superior. Superior means towards the heart or above portion, you can call it as the superior. The head is superior to the chest. So here you can see superior and the head and the chest is the superior. Examples. Inferior means towards the feet below the area. You can describe in this inferior terminology. The stomach is inferior to the heart. Heart is upper. I mean like heart will be up and stomach is like towards the feet area. And next you can see ventral and dorsal. Ventral means anterior, the front portion, and the back side is dorsal. The front of the body you can call it as the anterior and the back side of the body you can call it as the posterior. For example, here you can see the nose is anterior to the ears, and in the case of posterior, the spine is the posterior to the stomach. The spinal cord will be the back side. That's it. The spine is posterior to the stomach. Next, medial, lateral. Medial means towards the midline of the body. The midline of the body you can call it as the medial. The middle of the body that you can call it as the midline. The nose is medial to the eyes. The median to the eyes you can see the nose. That's why it is medial. And the lateral is away from the midline to the side. The arms are lateral to the chest. The both the side walls you can call it as the lateral. The medial means middle portion, lateral means both the sides. Next one is proximal and distal. In the nephrons, in the case of nephrons, you heard about the proximal convoluted tubules and the distal convoluted tubules. So the proximal means which is closer to the area, that you can call it as proximal, and far then you can call it as far distal. So closer to the trunk or point of origin is proximal, and the distal means which is away from or the far from the trunk or the origin of that specific organ. So here you can see the example. The elbow is proximal to the wrist. So it is actually nearly. And the fingers are distal to the shoulder. From the shoulder, the fingers are far. So that is why it is distal. Next one is superficial and deep. In the case of skin, superficial means the outside, towards the surface of the body, you can call it as the superficial, outside. And the deep means internally, very internally, like deep. So away from the surface, you can call it as the deep. For example, the skin is superficial to the muscles. The heart is deep to the rib cage. So these are the few terminologies which normally we are using it. Here we can see the frontal plane, the sagittal plane, and transverse plane, which is we have cut the brain into different positions, and this is the frontal plane and the sagittal. Like normally we can see the sagittal plane every day, and the transverse plane. And here we can see the fingers help distal, and this part will be the proximal. And back side is posterior, front side is ventral. And here also superficial, or this, and epidermal also we can say superficial area from the muscles, and very deep, very inside from the superficial, so that is a deep fascia. And lateral means the sides, and the medial means the middle part is the medial. And so here we can see the body cavities. In the body cavities are classified into two types, dorsal cavity and the ventral cavity. Dorsal cavity is in the back side, so cranial cavity and the spinal cavity, which has spinal cord, and the cranial cavity has the brain. And in the ventral portion, you can see the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity. So the thoracic cavity has lungs and the hearts, and the abdominopelvic cavity you can see the reproductive system, urinary system, digestive system, all you can see in the abdominopelvic cavity. So these are the cavities which are present in our human body. So thank you for watching my video. If you have any doubts or questions, please feel free to comment below or email me. The next lecture I will be starting with the cellular level of organization. So thank you.